Chris Lowe joins us now. Tennessee under investigation again. This time, the chancellor got the guns out and pointed them right at the NCAA. Chris, what's up? How are you?
Hey, guys. Yeah, the big guns. Donde Plowman, she's not pulling out the cap guns or the pellet guns, man. She's pulling out the bazooka, which, you know what? I think this is sort of what we're going to see going forward. When a school in this era of NIL, when there seemingly are no rules, okay, what are the rules? You guys tell me. Is I think you're going to see schools that feel like that they're just operating under this current era NIL. They're going to fight back. They're going to bite back. They're going to threaten legal action. Tennessee's already retained outside counsel again. And, you know, you go back to Tennessee's most recent bout with the NCAA when they went before the Committee on Infractions. Remember then the state attorney general threatened legal action if they imposed a postseason ban on Tennessee. Now, again, that was a separate case, but that is also part of the reason we are where we are right now, is that Tennessee falls in that window of being a repeat offender. And clearly Donde Plowman thinks that this investigation, which centers around Iomavela, I think I said it right. We'll get better and better at that.
Yeah, it changed. Yeah, it changed a few weeks ago.
And NIL, I mean, there are reports that part of the investigation centers around Tennessee flying him in, or I shouldn't say Tennessee, him flying in for visits on a private jet.
Yeah.
But clearly the bulk of this centers around him, his recruitment, NIL, what was or wasn't done. And I think that's, you know, again, with everyone sort of playing in that gray area now in the NIL era. I mean, was it done while he was still a high school kid? You know, can they prove it? Is there a paper trail? There's a lot there. But I think we know one thing for sure is that Donde Plowman, the chancellor of the University of Tennessee, and Tennessee are not going to go quietly. They're going to fight this. And I would say, I know everybody wants to know, and I'm sure they've all asked you guys tonight on your show, well, what's the end game? What's going to happen? Anybody who says they know for sure
no idea
that they've got Tennessee dead to right or that Tennessee's going to escape, they're not being honest, because no one knows. What I do know is this thing's going to be a fight, and it's going to end up in courts. And you know the real winners are going to be?
Lawyers. Attorneys. Billable hours are undefeated.
Billable hours. You know, we used to talk about facilities arm races and coaching salaries and who had the best coach and who had the best quarterback. You know what it's all about now, college sports? Billable hours.
Got to have somebody on retainer, huh?
Chris Lowe with us on 3HL. The weird element to this, though, is like usually like the hierarchy of the universities kind of kowtow to the NCAA at the beginning stages of these things. Like, sure, come in, the door's open, water's fine, blah, blah, blah. Not this time. Not this time. And it really feels like, Chris, this is a setup where schools can kind of unite together and go after the NCAA.
Oh, as I said at the outset, I think this is sort of what we're going to see. I think this is a blueprint for what we're going to see now, because there is no clear vision of what NIL is or isn't. I mean, it was never supposed to be, and this is laughable, a recruiting inducement. Come on. I mean, I'm going to repeat myself. I've got beachfront property, Slade. I'll sell you in Missouri. If anybody ever really believed that. It was always going to be a recruiting inducement. I mean, the NCAA and leaders, college football leaders, kicked this can down the road forever, and now here we are, and we have anarchy. Yeah. And I think that's what Donde is saying. And I don't want to speak for her. I've read her letter. Is that now you're going to come get us when you got these, you know, no one has this, you know, there's no clear parameters of what's what. Now, the NCAA said last year, I think, or in 22, that they could retroactively go after schools if they had them on recruiting violations under the guise of NIL before all this. I mean, like a grandfather type of thing. Now, is that part of this? I mean, I don't know, but it's this. You know, the real penalty is in all this is it just drags on forever. I mean, I don't know. Is Tennessee going to get a postseason ban? Are they going to walk completely free? I mean, again, I'm not going to speculate because I don't know. But the penalty, the lasting, enduring penalty, is these things just go on forever. That dark cloud hangs. Does it affect recruiting? Does it affect morale? There's just a lot of things there that you don't ever want to be in this position. But I do think it's different than it was 5 years ago. Just what you said, Brent, is that schools are going to fight back, and they're going to use the legal process to say, hey, yeah, come get us. We don't think you got anything. If you do come get us, and you try to impose this, and this, we're going to sue the you-know-what of it.
Which will further weaken the NCAA. Is this an opportunity? Because we've talked about forever that the NCAA is going to fall apart and go away. Is this an opportunity for these big schools to go after them and take them out?
Oh, I think we've sort of been moving this direction anyway. I've told you guys for a couple of years where
right.
we're headed. We're headed to a football-only division that the NCAA has nothing to do with. Does this get us there quicker? I don't know. I know that's not something that SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey is a big fan of, that scenario, and others. He's not the only one. But I do believe, and I've thought and think, hearing this news today and seeing the way Chancellor Plowman has fired back at the NCAA, that probably gets us a step closer where that division of football, major football, has its own governance and its own commissioner who rules. And its own playoff, its own way to pay players. I just don't see any way around not getting into that model some way, shape, or form. Does that mean though that Tennessee, where we are right now, can escape penalties, across the board? I don't know. I would say again, the two things in talking to people the other day that I trust and they've known for a while. The two things that probably most disconcerting for Tennessee is A, they do fall in that repeat offender window, and B, there was so much out there about Nico's recruitment, so much out there. Probably, not in a way, again, not so much University of Tennessee, their athletic program, but in a reckless way. There was stories written. Remember the story in The Athletic? There was a story about his attorney I think it was The Athletic, see his contract. There was the $8 million figure. Yeah. Remember, all this was done while he was in high school. It's almost like, and I'm not saying Tennessee was guilty or the collective. Inspire is certainly in the middle of this investigation.
Yeah.
Tennessee's main collective branch. But it's almost like someone's got a big, huge red flag, and they're waving it, and they're saying, hey, look at us, look what we're doing.
Yeah.
And looking back, I don't know that was the wisest way to go about this.
How far do you think it is away for the commissioners to unite? We see it with Tennessee and Florida right now, and then, of course, they got to fight their own battles. But at some point, do you expect Commissioner Sankey or another commissioner to step in and say, all right, enough is enough. Let's go on dead in this?
Yeah, so that's a fascinating question, because today the question that I have not been able to really get anybody to answer definitively for me is Greg Sankey was a huge ally for Tennessee in the last NCAA case. He was in Cincinnati, during the meeting before the Committee on Infractions. Now, will he be that strong in their corner this time? I'm not saying he will or won't. I do know this, having had conversations with Greg Sankey. He is not a fan of using NIL. And again, I'm not saying Tennessee did this for any school, but using NIL as a guise for recruiting inducements or pay for play. So does he go all in this time? Maybe he will, maybe he won't. But and I'm glad you asked that, because that was going to be the next point I made, is I don't know where he will be with all this. The other thing I would point out is Tennessee's not – I've talked to 3 other people today, not just at Tennessee. There are several schools that are being investigated right now for similar type situations, NIL-related violations, over and above Tennessee. Florida's one of them. I don't know all of them, but there's I was told at least 7 to 10 that are being investigated across the country. So
how many of them are SEC?
That's just dumb by the NCAA, man. Yeah, Babs had a good question.
I don't know. Probably a few of them, Babs. I do think that the NCAA wants to make an example of somebody that they feel like used NIL to go out and just sort of overtly cheat to pay some kid out of high school, or to pay some kid tampering in the portal. I think that's another part of this. I don't know if it's with Tennessee, but that's clearly something, as I've talked to coaches around the country, is that's the thing that they won't stop more than anything, is agents for players, whether they're in high school or another school, tampering and reaching out to other schools on that kid's behalf and saying, hey, he can get this deal at Tennessee, this deal at Florida, this deal at Ohio State. What are you willing to pay? I think that's the other part of this that the NCAA is trying to put a stop to. Can they do it? Do they have enough teeth to do it? I guess ultimately we're going to find that out, and it will be a serious fight. And I don't think, again, that as much as Tennessee spent, I don't know how much cash, probably Ron Slay type cash they spent the last time on their outside counsel. I think it was Mike Glazer's group to come in and help during the first investigation. I'm sure his group will be involved again this time. Mike was the one that he's former NCAA. He and Mike Slav actually had a firm together to help schools back in the day dealing with NCAA issues. But think of the money that Tennessee has spent and will spend trying to defend themselves now with two different NCAA cases. Again, unrelated. I think that needs to be pointed out here. This is not related to the Jeremy Pruitt case. It's a separate case, NIL, Spire, that type of that's what it revolves around. But the fact that Tennessee just had to deal with the NCAA, just had issues, does factor into the overall umbrella because the NCAA has that window, I don't know what it is, a year, 2 years, that if you come back before them, then you are subjected potentially to what they call extra penalties or stiffer penalties because you are, quote unquote, a repeat offender.
Repeat offender. Raising Arizona line there. Chris Lowe with us from ESPN.com. Really interesting stuff with regard to this investigation that popped up today. Quickly transitioning into basketball, Vanderbilt really struggling at 5-14, winless in conference play. They go at Auburn this midweek game tomorrow. What's going on there? Could they do something before the end of the season with regard to Stackhouse?
To me, if you're going to do that, the reason to do that is if, A, you feel like you've got one or two people out there that you can really start zeroing in on to get and be ready to go ready to pull the trigger on that person as soon as the season's over. And if you just don't see any way that's going to turn around, and I understand the frustration of Vanderbilt fans, what has happened the last couple of years, because that's a proud basketball program. They've had a lot of success, even postseason success over the years, to see what's happened. And just some of the bad losses they had in the preseason. They seem to play more competitively at times in the SEC part of the schedule. It hasn't translated into wins. But if it doesn't get any better and there's just no real hope as the administration there at Vanderbilt looks at it, then, yeah, I could see him making a move. But to me, the worst thing to do is just not have a plan, Brent.
Yeah.
And just fire somebody just so you can make the fans happy. All right, we're going Coach Bobby Bowden used to always say, what they want's a hanging at noon in the town square. They just want to make it, make people happy. And,
yeah.
That's if you're just doing it to sort of make fans happy or appease fans, then that's not the right reason to do it. If you got a plan, you got a vision, and it helps you get to where you want to get for that next year, and you don't see any hope with the current regime going forward, then, yeah, go ahead and do it.
Chris Lowe, ESPN.com. Great perspective. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate you, man.
Can I ask
guys,
one more question?
She's got her hand up like she's in class.
Auburn hiring DJ Durkin?
Yeah, I didn't know, Dawn, how they were going to structure that as far as who was calling plays, because they brought in Charles Kelly as co-coordinator, and he's been at Auburn. He's an Auburn guy, was at Colorado. But DJ Durkin's going to call the plays, and he's been a coordinator several different places in the SEC. Has, obviously, on his resume the awful thing that happened at Maryland with the kid losing his life during off-season workouts. I know a lot of people will bring that up, and I get why they do. But he does have a lot of experience in the SEC, and has worked. He's worked the last. I guess this will be his third straight job in the SEC as an SEC coordinator. But the staff there, I know has looked around and talked to a bunch of different people, and I think Chris Kiffin, Lane Kiffin's brother, was another guy he talked. Wouldn't that have been something, Kiffin versus Kiffin?
Yeah.
That would have been good.
That would have been good.
Good stuff, Chris. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, I was
guys.
surprised on the hiring. So yeah.